You walk through your front door tonight and you spot it. A black ant marching across your kitchen floor like he owns the place. You grab the spray, you curse, and you wonder why this keeps happening every single summer. Now picture a farmhouse in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, built in 1847. Wooden floors, open windows, no screens on half of them. No bug spray under the sink, no exterminator coming on Tuesday. Not a single ant, roach, or spider crossing that threshold. For over 170 years, that farmhouse has stood with its doors open in the humid Pennsylvania summer, and the insects stay outside. The Amish figured something out about doorways that cost less than $1 to set up. Something your grandfather probably knew. Something a $27 billion pest control industry would rather you forget. And tonight, before you go to bed, I am going to show you exactly what they place in every single doorway of every single home in Holmes County, Ohio. The first time I saw it, I was standing on a porch in Charm, Ohio, waiting for a man named Eli to bring me a glass of well water. I looked down at the threshold and I almost laughed because what I saw made no sense to me at the time. I bent down and looked at the door frame, right where the wood meets the floor. There was a thin line of white powder, not paint, not caulk, just a soft, chalky line running the full width of the door. I asked Eli what it was. He smiled and said, "That is what keeps the bugs honest." He brought me inside, showed me the back door, same line. Showed me the cellar door, same line. Showed me the windowsills upstairs in the children's bedroom, same line, just thinner. I stood in that farmhouse kitchen on a July afternoon with every window wide open and not a single fly on the counter. No sticky traps, no plug-in devices, no chemical smell, just a house that had figured out how to say no to insects at every entrance point. Eli's wife told me the recipe had come from her grandmother, written in a little notebook carried from Switzerland in 1872. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If you are not subscribed yet, hit subscribe and the bell. This is where we dig up what the outdoor industry buried. That powder was a mix of three things: diatomaceous earth, powdered boric acid, and ground bay leaf. That is the entire secret. A blend that costs about $1 to make a batch large enough to treat every doorway in a 3-bedroom house, and it lasts the entire season. Now, I was skeptical. I had spent years paying a pest control company to spray chemicals around my foundation every month, so I went home and I researched every claim. Diatomaceous earth is made of fossilized algae called diatoms. Under a microscope, every particle has razor-sharp edges that look like shards of broken glass. When a crawling insect walks across it, the powder slices through the waxy layer on their exoskeleton. They lose moisture, they dehydrate, and they die within 24 to 72 hours. Multiple studies have confirmed this, and the mechanism is entirely mechanical, not chemical. That distinction matters because it means insects cannot build immunity to it. There is nothing to adapt to, nothing to resist. It is just sharp dust that destroys on contact. Boric acid works differently, and this is where it gets devastating for entire colonies. When ants and roaches walk through boric acid, they carry it back to the nest on their legs. The colony grooms itself, they ingest the powder, and according to research from the University of California, the entire nest collapses within 1 to 2 weeks. Not just the scout ants you see marching across your counter. The workers, the larvae, the queen, the thousands you never see hiding behind your walls, all eliminated through a chain reaction that starts with a single line of powder at your doorway. And the bay leaf is the part that surprised me most. Bay leaves contain a compound called Eucalyptol that acts as a powerful repellent against ants, moths, and silverfish. Research from Kansas State University confirmed that Eucalyptol is effective at repelling cockroaches and weevils from kitchen environments. The bay leaf does not kill them. It tells them to turn around. It tells them this doorway is not for them. So you have three things working together. The bay leaf says, "Do not enter." The diatomaceous earth cuts the ones who ignore the warning, and the boric acid follows the survivors home and ends the entire colony. $1, 3 ingredients, 3 mechanisms of action. This video is just the surface. I have collected everything the pest control industry does not want you to know, all in the complete Forbidden Camping vault. The Amish Threshold Formula Guide with exact recipes, ratios, and application diagrams for every doorway type in your home. The Lost Pest Control Manual with 22 complete household formulas that have been in continuous use for over 200 years. the chemical-free home blueprint that shows you how to eliminate every toxic product under your sink and replace it with something cheaper that works better. The seasonal home defense checklist that tells you exactly what to apply, where and when, month by month, so nothing ever crosses your threshold again. And the complete wood preservation guide, with the oil treatments the Amish use on every door frame, windowsill, and cabinet in their homes. More than 10 guides in one place, no fluff, straight to the point. Every formula documented, every recipe tested on real houses, every ingredient available at your local hardware store. The link is in the description, but stay here because the video is just getting started. Back to the science, because the numbers behind this are staggering. The average American household spends between $300 and $1,200 per year on pest control services, sprays, traps, and replacement products. That is according to data from the National Pest Management Association. Over 20 years, that adds up to somewhere between $6,000 and $24,000 spent fighting a problem that an Amish grandmother solved with 3 things she pulled off her own kitchen shelf. And that same data found that 68% of American homeowners still report seeing insects. He wrote that he applied it along the sill of every door and every window in the spring before the warmth wakes the crawling things. His journal contains exactly 2 references to bug problems inside the house over a span of 41 years of daily entries. 2 incidents in 4 decades, spending nothing. Every ingredient came from within a half mile of his front door. Something does not add up, and the reason it does not add up is the reason this video exists. If you have made it this far, you already know more about protecting your home from pests than 99% of homeowners in this country. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to remember what they made us forget. And remember, everything the industry buried is in the complete forbidden camping vault. Link in the description. Now stay with me because the next vault is the heaviest. So here's the question the pest control industry hopes you never ask. If this 3-ingredient doorway powder has worked for hundreds of years, why is it not in every hardware store in America? Why did your own father, a man who probably built or maintained a house with his own hands, never mention it once? I went looking for the answer and I found it buried in a United States Department of Agriculture bulletin from 1923. The bulletin was called Farmer's Bulletin number 1379. It was distributed to rural households across Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. It described almost the exact recipe that Eli's wife showed me on that porch in Charm, Ohio. Diatomaceous earth, borax, and dried herbs. The bulletin called it threshold powder. It was considered standard practice on every farm in those states. Then in 1947, the synthetic pesticide industry exploded after the war. DDT was being marketed as a miracle product by companies pouring money into advertising campaigns. Those campaigns told housewives that homemade remedies were old-fashioned, dirty, and embarrassing. The USDA stopped reprinting the threshold powder bulletins. By 1955, the recipe had vanished from Extension Service literature entirely. It did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because nobody could patent it. Nobody could sell it for $48 a month. There is no profit in 3 things you can buy in bulk for pennies. And here is what those advertisements never mentioned about the product. The active ingredient in many of those early modern pesticides was DDT, which was banned in 1972 after it was linked to cancer and persistent environmental contamination. The replacement was chlordane, banned in 1988. Then came Dursban, banned for residential use in 2000. Every 20 years or so, the chemical industry produces a new generation of pesticides, markets them aggressively, then quietly pulls them when the health consequences become impossible to ignore. The cycle has repeated 4 times in a single lifetime, and every time it repeats, the old methods sit there in journals and on farmhouse shelves, unchanged, still working, still cheap, still safe. Today, the pest control industry in the United States alone generates over $27 billion per year, according to IBISWorld. More than 13 million residential customers pay for recurring services, and 85% of that residential revenue comes from repeat subscriptions. The industry does not survive on one-time solutions. It survives on dependency. A $1 powder that lasts 4 months and never needs a technician does not fit their business model. And that is why you have never heard of it. Here is what to do this weekend. Buy 1 pound of food-grade diatomaceous earth, about $8 online or $15 at any farm supply store. Make sure the label says food grade, because the pool grade version is chemically treated and dangerous to breathe. Buy a small box of Borax laundry booster, about $3 at any grocery store. Buy a jar of whole bay leaves, about $2 in the spice aisle. Take 8 bay leaves and grind them in a coffee grinder until they are powder. Mix 1 cup of diatomaceous earth, a quarter cup of borax, and the ground bay leaf in a glass jar. Then shake it. Go to every exterior door in your house. Open the door and look at where the threshold meets the floor inside the house. Sprinkle a thin line of the powder along that seam, and use your finger to push it into the gap. The line should be barely visible because you are not making a barricade, you are making a moat. Do the same thing under every windowsill on the ground floor. Do the same thing across the seam where your basement walls meet the basement floor. Do the same thing along the bottom of your garage door where it meets the driveway. The whole job takes about 20 minutes for an average house. The powder lasts roughly 4 months in dry conditions. If it gets wet from rain leaking under the door, you reapply that section and that is it. But there is a second part that almost nobody outside of those Amish settlements knows. An old carpenter named Moses in his workshop outside Berlin, Ohio, showed me something he called the threshold wood treatment. He soaked every door threshold in pennyroyal oil for 3 days before installing it. Pennyroyal is a wild mint that grows across the eastern United States. A book called The Pennsylvania German Cookbook, published in 1934 by Edna E.B. Heller, contains a recipe on page 217 for what she calls door oil. Pennyroyal, cedarwood, and a small amount of clove mixed in a base of linseed oil, brushed onto thresholds and windowsills. She wrote that every house she grew up visiting in Lancaster County had this oil on the wood, and nobody she knew had a bug problem. For an existing home, mix 20 drops of pennyroyal essential oil into a quarter cup of pure linseed oil. Wipe the mixture onto the wooden threshold of your front door, back door, and cellar door. Let the wood soak it in for about an hour, then wipe off the excess. The wood absorbs the oil and slowly releases the scent for up to 15 years. One word of caution, and I need to be honest with you here. Pennyroyal oil is toxic to cats and to pregnant women in concentrated form. Use it only on exterior thresholds where air circulation dilutes it, never inside a closed bedroom, and keep the bottle locked away. The Amish have known this for 200 years. The oil goes on the doorway where the wood absorbs it, not in living spaces. I also want to be upfront about the limitations. The doorway powder was developed in temperate climates in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. It is extremely effective against most species of ant, beetle, silverfish, common house moth, flea, tick, and the smaller varieties of cockroach. For tropical climates like Florida or southern Texas, the recipes may need adjustment and the application may need to be more frequent. The powder is not a sealed barrier, it is a deterrent system, and heavy rain on an exposed threshold means you reapply. But for the vast majority of homes in this country, this is real, it is documented, and it costs less than a fast food meal to set up. Total cost for the powder and the oil treatment on an average 3-bedroom house is about $28. Total time is about 1 hour. The powder protects for 4 months, the oil protects for 15 years. Compare that to the hundreds of dollars you spend every single year on a system that fails 68% of the time. This knowledge did not die. It was waiting. Waiting in old farmhouse journals, in Amish workshops, in little notebooks carried from Switzerland, in a book that went out of print before most of us were born. If this video made a difference, subscribe and share it. Every share preserves what the industry tried to erase. Everything I found, all 22 formulas, every recipe tested on real homes, is in the Forbidden Camping Vault. The link is in the description. The next vault opens soon, and what the industry hid inside it is even heavier.